In all history, there have been several families, millions and probably billions of them, but only a few stood out and became a global force to be reckoned with today. One of those families is the Rothschild family. Regarded as one of the world's most notable European banking dynasties, which goes back to the late 18th century. The Rothschild family is one for ages, known for their economic influence around Europe in the 19th and 20th century. The family name still stands strong to this day. But wait a minute, how much do you really know about them? The name Rothschild was originally derived from the red shield, Rothschild, on the house in the Jewish ghetto where their ancestors lived. To understand how they made a name for themselves, buckle up as we head to Frankfurt, Germany in the early 17th century, where the Rothschild family all began. The mastermind behind the rise of the Rothschild family was Mayer Amschel Rothschild, who grew his family with his 5 sons: Nathan Mayer, James Mayer, Solomon Mayer, Karl Mayer, and Amschel Mayer. His philosophy was that, by keeping his family's business within the family, the future was assured to be bright, and he wasn't wrong. The Rothschild family grew into a name to be reckoned with as it ventured into several profitable investments and built a successful, strong reputation in the financial industry all around Europe. They are till today regarded as the pioneers of international finance, starting out with branches in Naples, London, Vienna, Paris, and their native land, Frankfurt. From starting out as a small business engaged in foreign exchange and trading goods and commodities, the family enlarged its business ventures into merchant banking, asset management, private banking, insurance, mergers and acquisitions, venture capital, sovereign debt, and pension and investments. By constantly maintaining their financial reach, the Rothschild family went on to invest in major infrastructure projects, notably the Suez Canal. Before all these, the success of the Rothschild family can be tracked back to a humble beginning of Mayer Amschel Rothschild. While he, without a doubt, was a pioneer of the Rothschild family, the first person recorded in the family to have used the Rothschild name was Isaac Elkanan Rothschild, who was born in 1577. Mayer Amschel Rothschild was born on the 23rd of February, 1744 in Frankfurt, and was raised in the German Duchy of Hesse during the time when the Jews were not permitted to live close to Christians, but rather in small communities far from them. They were also not permitted to leave the village gatherings on Sundays, at night, or on Christian holidays. As a young child, Rothschild stayed in the house filled with 30 other family members, where he learned about how to run a business from his father, Amschel Musa Rothschild, who was into corn and silk business. One of his first jobs was arranging and sorting coins that were obtained through Frankfurt's semi-annual trade fair, an event that attracted several buyers from all around the region. Mayer continued staying at his family's house until he became an orphan at the early age of 12, when his parents died from smallpox. Before their death, Mayer's parents wished him to study Jewish education and become a Jew. However, Mayer had other plans, as he was only interested in one thing: business. So his relatives granted his wish and sent him to take an internship position with Simon Wolf Oppenheimer at a banking house in Hanover, Germany, where he eventually learned everything he needed to know about banking and foreign trade. While at the banking house, Mayer learned the trade secrets of rare coins from famous places like Byzantine Empire, Persia, and Rome. The collector of coins were wealthy men, including several princes. After learning the business, Mayer returned to Frankfurt, his hometown, at the age of 19. Now an adult and ready to venture into his own business, Mayer joined his brothers as they continued the wealth trade and commodities as their fathers did. Soon, he had a rare coin business with Prince Wilhelm, who later in 1785 became Wilhelm IX, Landgrave of Hesse-Kassel, and eventually the richest man in Europe. It didn't take long before Mayer Rothschild started rendering other banking services to Wilhelm and several aristocrats. By 1769, Mayer Rothschild had become exceptional at his business and was appointed court factor, a banker of Jewish origin managing the finances of European loyalty and nobility. The following year, in 1770, Mayer took the biggest step of his life, one that really began the rise of his empire. He married Gottel Schnapper, the daughter of another court factor and money changer. Gottel gave birth to 10 children, 5 boys and 5 daughters, who would later go on to propel the family name through the next generation and to a whole new level. Unlike his court factor predecessors who couldn't carry their coin business to the next generation, Mayer Rothschild was a very smart man. He succeeded in passing his wealth among his children to the next generation, and the business grew exponentially during the French Revolution. As Mayer Rothschild enabled payment from the British for the employment of Hessian mercenary soldiers, he supplied several items to the Austrian army, including uniforms, horses, whey, and equipment. Around the early 1800s, when his son had come of age, Mayer Rothschild sent him to live in London, Paris, Vienna, and Naples, while one stayed back in Frankfurt. With each one of his sons in England, France, Austria, Italy, and Germany, Mayer's plan and the ultimate goal was to establish a banking business in those cities for his sons, which he did. His 5 sons went in to expand the family business throughout Europe. Their coverage of 5 different and major cities around Europe meant that for the next century, from 1815 to 1914, the Rothschild family controlled the largest banks in the world. With Mayer's sons spread around Europe, the 5 bank branches they established became linked with each other and, in effect, became the first bank to cross borders. Mayer's sons grew the bank to start lending money to the government to fund war operations for several centuries, which offered the Rothschild family the opportunity to gather bonds and build extra wealth across different industries. Before Mayer Rothschild died, he laid down strict rules and instructions on how the family should handle the finances he left behind. Due to his strong will to leave the fortune within the family, he outlined a strict patrilineal system for succession. That way, property and titles could only be passed down through the male descendants, while the female descendants were left out of any direct inheritance. However, this had a huge effect on encouraging marriages between the family members. From 1824 to 1877, there were over 35 marriages by Rothschild's male children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Among the marriages, 30 were marriages between male descendants and members of the family. Most of them married their first or second cousins, and during this period, only 2 Rothschild men and 4 women married people who weren't family members. After the death of Mayer Amschel Rothschild in 1812, his eldest son, Amschel Mayer, took over as the head of the bank at Frankfurt am Main. He had a very quiet life, managing the business his father had left with his other brothers spread across Europe. In 1817, he became enrolled as Amschel Mayer von Rothschild, and 5 years later, in 1822, he became a baron. Amschel Mayer held a tight closeness to the Orthodox Jewish circle and was referred to by Eastern European Jews as the pious Rothschild. Amschel died without a child, and his brother's sons Anselm, son of Solomon, and Mayer Karl and Wilhelm Karl, son of Karl, took responsibility for the business from 1855. Solomon, the 3rd child and 2nd son, went to Austria and became quite successful. Before his move to Austria, he was trained by his father in finance business with years of experience. Without wasting time in Austria, he set up the SM von Rothschild in 1820, the same year he arrived. The business was a major financer of the Nordbahn rail transport network, Austria's first steam railway company. His company also funded several government programs that required a large amount of capital to be raised. After getting close to the government, Solomon Mayer Rothschild further established his presence in Austria by making connections with the country's highest aristocrats and political elite through his closeness with Prince Clemens von Metternich and Frederick von Gens. While at the helm of the bank, Solomon oversaw the operation as the SM von Rothschild played a vital role in the growth and development of the Austrian economy. To recognize his services in the country, Emperor Francis I raised him to Austrian nobility in 1816. However, the patent was offered to his 4 other brothers, with only Nathan Mayer declining. In 1822, Solomon, alongside his 4 brothers, was again honored by the emperor, when he awarded him with his hereditary title of Freiherr, which means baron in German. By 1843, Solomon Freiherr von Rothschild broke new ground in the family by becoming the first ever Jew to be awarded the honorary Austrian citizenship. His personal wealth was enormous, leading him to acquire more properties and make investments in antiquities and art. Despite his philanthropic contributions to several charitable causes, the concentration of wealth among the aristocrats in the country caused civil unrest. By the time the revolution hit its peak in 1848 in the Habsburg area, there were anti-Rothschild sentiments being written about in broadsheets, such as the Ein Offener Brief. With the fall of Metternich, Solomon lost some of his political clout and his bank a considerable amount of money, but was still able to keep the family name and business running. When Solomon reached 74 years, he came under heavy pressure to surrender the reins to his son Anselm, as is the family tradition. He later did, but not without rancor, and left Vienna back to Paris, where he died in 1855. After his death, some objects from his art collection from the Italian and French Renaissance were donated to the Louvre, including 2 paintings by Carlo Dolci. Among Mayer Rothschild's 4 sons who went to another European country, it was the 3rd son Nathan who became the most successful, propelling the Rothschilds' family name even further to centuries to come. Nathan initially moved to Manchester, England in 1798, where he set up a textile business with working capital of £20,000, which is equivalent to £1.9 million today. A figure that shows how much of a successful man Nathan was. He later relocated to London, where he established himself as a renowned banker and set up a prestigious N.M. Rothschild in 1810. But that wasn't all. Just like his father, Nathan didn't focus on one line of business at a time, so he traded on the London Stock Exchange, which led him to set up the family's bank called N.M. Rothschild & Sons Limited, which became the 7th oldest bank in England in terms of continuous operation. By using pigeons as a network for communication with his brothers, Nathan positioned himself as the central bank of Europe, providing funds for several infrastructures, like making purchases for kings, protection of national banks and railings, which industrializations helped start the revolution. Like other Rothschild banks established by Mayer's sons, N.M. Rothschild & Sons Limited gave credit to the British government when they were in crisis. During the Napoleonic Wars, the bank financed the British government's subsides to allies and lent money to pay the troops. In a nutshell, the Rothschild family almost single-handedly financed the war effort. By 1824, Nathan Rothschild, in partnership with Moses Montefiore, co-founded the Alliance Assurance Company, which is now part of the RSA Group today. 9 years later, in 1835, Nathan yet again made another giant stride for the Roth family name, when he secured the sole rights to the famous mercury mines in Spain. The acquisition gave the family a virtual world monopoly on mercury as a vital chemical element for refining silver and gold. In 1852, the supply of mercury later proved invaluable when the Rothschild family company, N.M. Rothschild & Sons, started refining silver and gold for the Royal Mint and Bank of England. Nathan Mayer was succeeded by his eldest son, Lionel de Rothschild, who took over at the helm of the London branch of N.M. Rothschild & Sons Limited. Lionel Nathan Rothschild was the first Jewish member of the parliament. While he was head, the bank was solely responsible for financing the British government purchase of the Suez Canal in Egypt, 1875. His interest in railways picked up where he started investing in it, as his father's brother James did while in France. So he continued running the family business successfully for years to come, grooming his son to be ready to continue the family's dominance in the financial industry. In 1869, 10 years before his death in 1879, Lionel's son, Alfred de Rothschild, took over as the director of the Bank of England, serving a total of 20 years. By this time, the Rothschild family had grown immensely around Europe. In 1892, Alfred was one of the very few people representing the British government at the International Monetary Conference in Brussels, Belgium. Things were just getting started for the family's banking business, as more groundbreaking achievements were on its way. It didn't take long before the Rothschild Bank fully funded the then Prime Minister of the Cape Colony, Cecil Rhodes, in development of the British South Africa Company, and Leopold de Rothschild administered Rhodes' estate after his death in 1902 and helped to set up the Rhodes Scholarship Scheme at Oxford University. By 1873, the family decided to join their resources for further expansion as the descendant of the youngest son of Mayor Amsher Rothschild, Jacob. who was sent to Paris and partnered with Nathan Mayer's son. The partnership saw the Rothschild Frères of Paris and N.M. Rothschild and Sons of London, alongside other investors, buy a Spanish government mine known as the Tinto Copper Mines. The reason for the acquisition was that the mine had become unprofitable for the government. Under their ownership, they turned the company back into a profitable business, and by 1905, the Rothschild family interest in the Tinto Copper Mines was over 30%. Prior to this success, Lionel de Rothschild and the French Rothschild banking house invested in and loaned money to De Beers diamond mines in South Africa, becoming its largest investor and shareholders. Lionel Nathal de Rothschild ensured that the London banking house continued to grow under his leadership. And when he handed over to his brother Anthony Gustave de Rothschild, the company remained at a growing rate, further signifying the efforts put in place by the original founder of the banking house, Nathan Mayer Rothschild. Anthony was succeeded by his son, Evelyn de Rothschild. Over the next century, politics, war, and family rivalries reduced the fortune of the Rothschild family despite the success of the London and Paris branches of the family. So what happened exactly that led to the family's diminishing fortune? Let's go back a bit in time. In 1863, the Naples branch of the Rothschild family closed up, and by 1901, the lack of male successors meant the closure of the German bank in Frankfurt, which was originally the place where it all started. In 1938, following the invasion of Austria by the Nazis and the threat they posed to the Jews, the Vienna branch closed up, but it was only the start. In France, the Vichy government seized the properties of the Rothschild Bordeaux during the war, while the Nazis confiscated art and other precious objects from the Austrian branch of the family, totaling millions of dollars. However, the Austrian government later returned a portion of it in 1998. In the coming years, the family spent more time giving out assets and properties rather than gaining new ones. Several of their luxurious Rothschild estate were given out in charity to the French and British governments and other universities and organizations. In the early 1970s, only 3 Rothschild family banks remained: the London branch, the Paris branch, and the Swiss bank founded by Edmund Adolph de Rothschild, the son of Maurice de Rothschild, who was born to the Paris family branch. In 1982, the Paris family bank was dealt a huge blow when President François Mitterrand's socialist government nationalized the bank and renamed it Compagnie Européenne de Banque. Despite his independence, Edmond came to aid his cousins, Baron David René James de Rothschild, 1942, who stayed in Paris and in 1987 created Rothschild and C Bank. By the 20th century, the family had taken a huge turn into the modern world and was majorly led by Sir Evelyn de Rothschild. Born Evelyn Robert Adrian de Rothschild on August 29, 1931, Evelyn was the only son of Anthony Gustave de Rothschild and Vonne Lydia Louise née Cahen Danvers, named after his uncle, who died while in action in the First World War. Evelyn, like several of his cousins, spent time growing up in America during the Second World War. By the time he returned to London, he started schooling at Harrow School in London and proceeded to Trinity College before attending Cambridge University. After completing university, Evelyn spent most of his useful years socializing, traveling, driving luxurious sports cars, playing polo, and enjoying horse racing. By the time he turned 26, Evelyn had joined N.M. Rothschild and Sons in order to be trained in the family business, following the steps and wishes of his father, Anthony Gustave de Rothschild. In 1968, Sir Evelyn assumed his position in the family by becoming the director of Paris-based the Rothschild Frères. At the same time, Guy de Rothschild from the family branch of the family became a partner of the N.M. Rothschild and Sons. By 1976, Evelyn had grown so much in the business, becoming a chairman of the N.M. Rothschild and Sons after succeeding Victor Rothschild. In 1982, he continued his huge rise in the family by becoming the chairman of the Rothschild Continuation Holdings AG, the coordinating company for the family's merchant banking group, and by 1994, he became the co-chairman of Rothschild Bank AG Zurich, and to date, the Rothschild family remains an integral part of the United Kingdom economy due to their ownership of the N.M. Rothschild & Sons Limited. Before the retirement of Sir Evelyn as the head of the company in London, he oversaw a merger between the English and French banking companies with his French cousin, David René de Rothschild, who became the head and executive chairman of the Rothschild international banking businesses, while Sir Evelyn continued as a non-executive chairman of N.M. Rothschild & Sons, while still privately owned by the Rothschild family. A £34 million net profit was reported at the end of 2014, and by 2020, the bank had filed that it generated £2.97 billion in revenue and had made £606 million in net income and £101.6 billion in assets under management. In the years that followed, the Rothschild family wealth was divided among the descendants and heirs. Today, the family holdings are spread across several industries, especially the financial industry. It also includes the mining industry, real estate, energy, and charitable work. The French branch of the family also owns several wineries in South Africa, Australia, France, and other parts of the world. Traditionally, the fortune of the Rothschild family is mainly invested in close-held corporations, and today, they have corporations that have continued to see huge success. Several of the family members are employed and directly work for the corporations, while others are invested in several operations aimed at expanding and increasing the family's wealth. The remarkable success of the Rothschild family over the past centuries has been majorly due to their strong interest in financial corporations, cooperation, and becoming entrepreneurs. Keeping the business in the family and practicing smart business principles established by their founding ancestors. The Nathan Rothschild estate was closely tied to the other fortunes held by the family and became part of the prize collection passed on to the next generation of the family. The descendants continued to finance global business operations and contribute to scholarly, humanitarian, cultural, and business endeavors with David Mayer de Rothschild, a British adventurer, environmentalist, and son of Sir Evelyn de Rothschild. Currently regarded as the richest member of the family, with a esteemed net worth of over $10 billion. For a family with such a rich history, it doesn't come with a huge surprise. The family motto is Concordia, Integritas, Industria, which means harmony, integrity, and industry. Currently, the family's entire net worth is believed to be staggering $400 billion, with some estimations reaching $1 trillion. If you enjoyed this video, do leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories about your favorite companies, families, and people.